Hey everybody, I'm going to read you a list. And on that list are places. The United States of America, Rwanda, South America, Libya, Russia, current China, China occupied by Japan, Cambodia, Burma, Myanmar, Syria, Germany. Whether or not you realize it, all those places have one huge thing in common. You're familiar with what it is? It's genocide. It is a group that was either in power or not in power and used a different word for it, but now we're starting to call it critical race theory, to change the majority of people, or a smaller minority to turn them into a majority of people, that it's someone else's fault, they're to blame, and then it went to the worst possible way and they just decided to do wholesale slaughter. I will link to several different websites that talk about genocide and places around the world that have genocide, because that's what bothers me and worries me personally the absolute most about critical race theory, because that's how it gets used. That's its end game. That's what it always turns into. Whenever you turn somebody into a group and you dehumanize them, you turn them not into a person. You say it's that group's fault that led to the state current that we're in. I'm going to read you a little excerpt from where a lot of mainstream beliefs are about genocide and what leads up to it. The mainstream theories of the causes of genocide can be broadly summarized as fractionalization, grievance, and dehumanization. This group of theories collectively argue that genocide can be predicted by higher ethno-linguistic or religious fractionalism, with a country combined with grievances between groups. The final important dimension is dehumanization of the victim group. This theory is associated with the sociologist Leo Cooper, I'm probably butchering that name, who conducted some of the earliest studies in comparative genocide. A national crisis. Here, catastrophic events such as war, economic depression, or revolution are the triggers for genocide, other types of mass killings. This casualty is motivated by one of two theories: the scapegoat theory and the political opportunity theory. The first theory posits that a particular group is identified as the cause of the crisis and that the solution is to eliminate the group. The second theory instead argues the crisis creates the opportunity for a group to consolidate their power. And the third is government power. This is a theory largely due to Rudolf Rommel and is referred to as the power principle. Rommel argues that the more power a government has, the more it can act arbitrarily according to the whims and desires of the elites, and the more it will make war on others and murder its foreign and domestic subjects. The more constrained the power of the governments, the less it will aggress on others. A major implication of this theory is that authoritarian regimes are far more likely to resort to democide and democratic regimes. So, if that doesn't sound a little bit like where this country is headed or what's happening, then you really should pay attention more. And if you're wondering why some of the critical race theories type-esque has been used by this own country to subjugate people, that is how they convinced Western settlers and other people that they needed to go and quote-unquote kill the Indian savages across the West and put them into camps. We called them not re-education camps, but we were a little bit nicer with reservations. Same thing. Took away who they were. Had said, nope, you can't talk your own tongue. You have to talk only our tongue, and we're going to beat it out of you. And now, if you talk to children, they are able to talk to their grandchildren. They're not their grandchildren. Their grandparents and their great-grandparents, if they're still alive, that spoke the native tongue but were not allowed to. So they're finally able to go and teach those children their native tongue and speak in it and not be demonized and ostracized by the government that did this. The government also did this with its wonderful Jim Crow laws in the North and in the South that propagated all the way through. Because you can't really subjugate a person or go and think that it's okay to kill them because they, I don't know, a great quote from Blazing Saddles, "Where all the white women at?" Truly, that is absolutely egregiously disgusting that people did think like that. And there are still some people nowadays that do think like that. Shame on them for that. But that's how you get there, through a type of critical race theory. Look at the war on drugs. Look at the majority of how all gun control started. That's how it started. It was to keep us versus thems safe. And you can put whoever you want in the us versus thems. If you look at the book 1984, which a lot of people love to quote, like, "Oh, well, that's all going on now," with that, it's always been going on for any government. I believe I was reading about the autobiography of George Orwell, an excerpt from it. He talked about the reason that he made that book was because it was based on Burma and what Burma was doing to its own citizens. And now Burma changed its name because of all the atrocities that they did and the genocides that they did in their own country. So they changed it to Myanmar. And whether you remember it or not, a whole 3 years ago, they decided to do another genocide. The military and Buddhist extremists decided to systematically do genocide. I believe on it was the Rohingya Muslims. And strangely enough, Rohingya Muslims are also being genocided against in China in re-education camps. It's a problem that happens all around the world. It happened with the Hutus and the Tutsis. There's genocide always. And what happens when we get a group of people that feel aggrieved for any reason, and they think, well, it's all somebody else's fault and we need to make them pay for what happened to us. That's always where it goes. It always goes to violence. Almost always. Rarely is it ever, boy, let's stop, have a measured approach, and instead of on the battlefield of violence, let's meet on the battlefield of intelligence and discussion. Depends on how you look at it. Violence, all you're going to get is more violence. And until we are willing to stop and stem the tide of seeking violence and violent retribution against people who we feel have perceived or have not perceived to wrong us, it's going to keep happening. And it always keeps happening. It's tribalism. We keep pushing tribalism. Even though we try to push away from it, we try to go from a melting pot where everybody goes together, which our own government pushes us apart and wants to put us into different groups so that we have more tribalism. It's the easiest way for our government to control us all, by dividing us all up into little groups and being able to control us and conquer us and use their jackbooted thugs, the police, to assault us, to beat us, to corral us. And of course, the majority of police officers aren't bad people. They're actually good-hearted people that want to do good. But there are crapheads out there, just like there are crapheads in every job. You probably know who you are if you're one of those crapheads. Or you probably know other people that are crapheads. And the way that we can work through this is by actually doing something that I know everybody says you shouldn't do. Tell people about them. If there are police officers out there that are doing wrong, let people know. If enough people start complaining, and if their own department won't do anything, then you get as a group together and then go above their department. You keep moving it up the ladder, because eventually your voices will get loud enough that somebody is going to pay attention to you. And when you go and look at where we are teaching our children and groups of people or individuals that you should either hate yourself or hate another group because of who they are, how they were born, that they have no control over, that's a very bad idea. That's a very, very divisive way to look at things. Instead of trying to work together and to grow together. We're all here together. You can choose to be with everybody, or you can choose to be against everybody. I prefer to be with everybody. seen the violence before. Doesn't really something I want to go back to. Hence why I didn't stay in and keep going in and going tours overseas. 3 was enough for me. Some people, they went more, and I'm happy for them. I'm happy that they made it out. I have friends that didn't make it out. And we see it all around us. We have to work together. And learning about history is a huge part of it. But we don't learn about history. We learn about certain aspects of history, which can be a problem, which is why people are pushing some of these theories now. Because we're not willing to talk about the horrible things in our past. And we need to talk about those horrible things in our past. We need to bring them out at the dinner table. And the dinner table is society. We need to talk about them and have discussions. Because when we don't have discussions about them, then we yell and scream, call each other names, and then it gets violent. And that's not good. Now, it's up to you. You can choose what you can do with this. You can either follow exactly what they tell you and say, yes, one group is evil and that group must be stopped, and we must, even if we have to, because they will not listen to us, we must use violence against them to stop them. All you're going to get back is violence. It's not going to change anybody's mind. People might say, okay, we're going to listen to you, but we're going to quietly rebel against you in some way, shape, or form. But there are far too many armed people in this country for it to go that way. This is not like it was in a lot of those other countries. I mean, that's just it. I mean, where else do you want to go with it? Why would you want to go and see the beautiful things that happen in this country, and instead of working together to help actually implement change, try to break things away, try to burn it all down? But this is me, and it's disappointing and sad that there are so many people that are calling for violence on all sorts of sides. You can't rely on your politicians to have your ideals in mind and to not want to promote violence because they don't care. Again, remember the list. Right now there are open slave markets in Libya, a place that we helped push for open slave markets. Yeah. So, how do you own slaves? Because you think they're not real people. That's what we did in our own country. That's what England did. That's what the Dutch did. That's what the Spanish did. That's what every other major country did when they owned slaves. Because they said, these aren't real people. You put out propaganda that says that they're not real people. But they are. They are real people. And it's bad. And it's really sad that that's what happens. But we all have to grow and realize harm that's been done to us and harm that we've done to others, and we have to grow through it. You can't hold on to that hate. Every single day, we all wake up and walk around with hate. Every person does. Just depends on what you do with that hate. Do you let that hate control you, or do you control it? Anyways, this is me using my voice. Remember to use yours. Much love to everybody out there, and don't be a mushroom. Take care, bye guys. Bye.